What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Oh, how the tables have turned. You know, I love that saying that you F around and you find out, FAFO somebody, if you will. And that has been going on a lot with Trump and his regime here lately. And it's just been great to watch all this unfold and to see the spectacle of all these tariffs just play out as they are playing out. But, as we had last week, the EU tried to come out strong and saying, oh, this is ridiculous. Trump he's going to crash the economy, blah, 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 blah. They're going to fight Donald Trump to the very end. And this week,
we stand ready to negotiate with the United States. Indeed, we have offered 0 for 0 tariffs for industrial goods, as we have successfully done with many other trading partners, because Europe is always ready for a good deal. So we keep it on the table. But we are also prepared to respond through countermeasures and defend our interests.
And so they just folded right over, if you will. You F around and you're going to find out. As a matter of fact, Donald Trump is not playing any games. He wants to get a fair deal with the rest of the world, for crying out loud. They've been taking advantage of the United States for far too long, and it's just becoming out of hand, if you will. It's just getting to the point to where, America is tired of taking the shaft, if you will. And that's just seems like what's been going on. Of course, everybody just brushes over all this, and they're trying to bring the narrative, like I've said before in the past, that, oh, it's just a tax on you, blah, 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 blah. No. They don't understand what's all going on here. It's like the corporate press cannot think past what's right in front of them for a second. They can't think any layers deep. Then it's a tax on you. That's it. That's all they see. That's all they know. But this is working out to be some of the greatest. Like, I've covered articles in recent days, as a matter of fact, talking about, 50 countries want to come to the table and blah, 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 blah. Well, check this out, y'all. Trump's reciprocal tariffs prompt Japan trade negotiations with the U.S., and that's not it. Vietnam pledges to buy more U.S. goods as it seeks urgent Trump tariff talks. And then, moving right along, Trump begins to double down countries with tariffs. Indonesia promises to buy oil and food from the U.S. Oh, we're not done yet, folks. Trump tariffs threaten 35,000 jobs. Entire towns in South Africa's citrus sector, Farmers Group says. Yeah, so these people know what is actually going on. They know that their economies are going to suffer a lot more damage than ours will. So that means that they're willing to drop their pride, drop all this damn posturing, come to the table and negotiate some free trade, some actual NAFTA going on up in here, right? Because we were supposed to have free trade. That's what the liberal economic order was all supposed to be all about. You get enough trade, you get trade ties between all these countries strong enough that'll disincentivize or deter, if you will, any other country from going to war. We won't have any more global wars like we did before, because if we do, it's going to destroy your economy. Just outright. And you can't function, you can't functionally go to war if your economy is imploding, as a matter of fact. But that wasn't it, folks. I just had to interject with that right quick. South Korea eyes boosting energy imports to cut surplus with U.S. That is right. So they're all coming to the table. As a matter of fact, every single country Trump is imposing tariffs on is coming to the table, willing to negotiate. This is working, folks. There's a lot of people getting their panties in a twist, if you will, about what's going on in the markets right now, the stock market, that is, right? And, you've got a lot of right-wing personalities, and I don't quite get this. They're saying, oh, don't worry about this, blah, 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 blah. It's not bad. It's only the stock market. Well, the stock market is very, very important to our economy. That's investment. That is actual people banking on the fact that the U.S. economy is going to win. They invest money into these companies, and these companies operate based upon those investments. Like, it gets really, really complicated far past my level of IQ, if you will, right? Like, you could just do a deep dive on stocks and bonds and equities and all this other stuff. And we could be here all day talking about that, but that's not what we do around here, folks. We read the news, as a matter of fact. But, I just don't understand why they're getting out there saying this is not bad at all. Like, it could be a good thing, but it could be a bad thing, right? Like, if the stock market actually crashes is a bad thing, like, a lot of economists are coming out and saying this is just a reset, right? We had a little bit of a bubble going on. The stock market corrects itself about once every 18 months. And this is just what we're seeing. It just so happened to line up with these tariffs. Of course, like the dip is partially the tariffs, but it's also mostly just a correction, if you will, because like we saw today, the stock market bounced back a pretty good little bit. Well, it's only like 1.5%, which it's down from 2 weeks ago, like 15% or something like that. I forget what it is, but it's just signs that we're moving in the correct direction, right? If you know what I mean. But that is not the only thing. We have got to get China to the negotiating table. China, that's the big one. They're trying to push their little bit of economic weight around, and it's not settling well with Donald Trump. Check this out, y'all. White House insists Trump won't budge on 104% China tariff. That is right. So they've been going back and forth. Donald Trump puts out the blanket tariffs. I think it was 34% on China. Well, China retaliates. Say we're going to put 50% tariff. I think it was 50% on American goods. Well, that really doesn't affect us nearly as much as it's going to affect China. So Donald Trump, he said, okay, you want to play games? You want to mess around and find out? Then he boosts that up to 50% on China. Then China's like, no, we're not backing down whatsoever. And they retaliated again. And now Trump's coming back. Look, you really want to go there, China? 104%. Of course, that's going to cause prices on Chinese imports to double. As a matter of fact, like not necessarily double, but some things will double because some of these companies, they just don't care. They have low overhead. They can't just absorb that cost. So yeah, they're going to raise prices as a matter of fact, right? So Donald Trump really, really needs to get China to the negotiating table pretty damn quick. That's all I'm going to say on that little aspect. Well, let's read the news right quick because yeah, we got some stuff to get into, folks. The White House on Tuesday insisted that President Trump won't back down on his threat to impose a more than 100% tariff rate on China, significantly escalating the trade war between the two nations hours before the deadline approaches. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt was asked what it would take for Trump to come to any sort of negotiating ground with Chinese President Xi Jinping.
You mentioned the 70 countries or so. I'm curious, though, under what conditions at this point would President Trump talk to President Xi about tariffs?
Look, I just spoke to the president about this, and he believes that China wants to make a deal with the United States. He believes China has to make a deal with the United States. It was a mistake for China to retaliate. The president, when America is punched, he punches back harder. That's why there will be 104% tariffs going into effect on China tonight at midnight. But the president believes that Xi and China want to make a deal. They just don't know how to get that started. And the president also wanted me to tell all of you that if China reaches out to make a deal, he'll be incredibly gracious, but he's going to do what's best for the American people.
So China has to call first?
The Chinese want to make a deal. They just don't know how to do it. But the president will be implementing these 104% tariffs on China tonight.
And under what conditions might he consider lowering tariffs on China at this point?
It would be imprudent of me to tell you those conditions here from the podium.
Yes, it would. It would be very imprudent of you to do so. But, I think Donald Trump knows a little something. Like, a lot of imports from China, they're not non-necessities, right? So if they just double the price on this, a lot of Chinese companies, they're going to go belly up. They're going to lose a lot of money because what's going to happen? People aren't going to buy those non-necessities. Why? Because they're looking out for themselves. You need food. You need a place to stay. You need your energy, right? But you don't need a brand new TV, for crying out loud. You don't need a lot of those cheap Chinese imports. So what's going to happen? Orders are going to stop coming in. Businesses, of course, once again, a lot of businesses in the United States are going to hurt in the meantime, right? Just in the short term, they're going to hurt because of this, right? Maybe they'll start looking elsewhere to get some of these imports other than China, because there are other countries, as a matter of fact. Some of these other countries we're negotiating with, maybe you can order some of that stuff through them. But, China, if they just lose sales, like en masse, from the United States, they're going to be hurting. They're going to be hurting really bad. And they're going to come to the table pretty damn quickly, as a matter of fact. And, I think Donald Trump knows this. He realizes that, sure, in the next week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, yeah, it might be a little bit of pain, might be a little bit of, uncertainty, if you will, in the markets. But, they're going to come to the table once they see that money stop rolling in. A lot of their main manufacturing starts to go belly up. They start losing money. Yeah, they're going to come to the table, as a matter of fact. And I think Donald Trump knows this. And I think he's banking on the fact that, it's going to hurt China a lot more than it's going to hurt us. So they're going to falter first, if you will. And I believe he's right on that. I think he needs to keep pushing. He needs to stay strong. You and I, we need to stay strong. It's going to hurt, but once again, it needed to happen. We need a reset. We were getting taken advantage of just blatantly and just all over the place, all over the markets, with all of these other countries all over the world. It was getting outright insane, and it was an unsustainable path, if you will. And I think that's why Donald Trump did it like this, because he saw it's unsustainable. Our middle class is just faltering, just slowly going down the drain. And he had to do something to shake stuff up, if you will. But she also reiterated that Trump believes that China wants to make a deal, after the president said on Truth Social earlier on Tuesday that China also wants to make a deal badly, but they don't know how to get it started. We are waiting for their call. It will happen, he added. Trump, in a post on Truth Social on Monday, threatened to add the 50% to the current 54% tariff rate. The rate was reached after Trump imposed a 34% tax on top of a 20% rate on China last week. The Chinese government later on Monday vowed to fight to the end and impose more taxes on the U.S., which honestly, once again, doesn't really hurt us all that much. Doesn't hurt American companies all that much. We were already paying heavy duties to China, as a matter of fact, which we don't have a lot of imports to China. So once again, this is going to hurt them way more. Like your father back in the day when you was a kid, when he go to whip you because you broke something, or you stayed out too late, or you did something bad enough to get a spanking. He said, this is going to hurt you a lot more than it's going to hurt me. And then he rears back and hits you in the face. Not really, pulls the belt off something to give you a spanking. And I think that's what Donald Trump is doing right here. This is going to hurt you a lot more than it's going to hurt us. So I think, once again, it's a gamble. I'm not going to lie. He's gambling. It's a high-stakes game here. Really high-stakes game. But I think he knows he has the upper hand on this. And all we have to do is stay strong, y'all. China initially responded to Trump's tariffs by saying it would hit the U.S. with a matching 34% reciprocal tariff on imports starting this week, arguing the sweeping import taxes undermine the interests of the United States itself, but also endangers global economic development and the stability of the production and supply chain. Yeah, well, if you guys wouldn't be taking advantage of the United States, this wouldn't be necessary, my guys, over there in China. They also said that the United States is just bullying everybody else in the world. Yeah, come on. No, you guys have been taking advantage of the United States, and they know it. They absolutely know they've been taking advantage of the United States, and it's time for that to come to an end. As a matter of fact, China, yeah, they're hurting right now, as a matter of fact, and they're going to be hurting even more. Like, their real estate market is in almost a state of collapse. At least it's been that way for the past several years, as a matter of fact. And, the Chinese Communist Party, they don't like to give out how much they are actually losing right now on the real estate, because they decided to invest way too heavily and people aren't getting their homes. People were putting down payments on homes that weren't even built yet. It's a whole thing. I watched an entire documentary on this a little while back, so I don't remember all the ins and outs all that well, but it's bad. I don't think it's recovered yet. I'm pretty sure it hasn't. Maybe I should have checked that, but I didn't realize I was going to be talking about that. But, it is what it is. Trump and the White House have insisted that the manufacturing of iPhones, which are primarily made in China, could move to the U.S. The device, in which a single phone is manufactured across multiple nations, could, as a result, see prices skyrocket should Apple pass additional costs down to consumers if it doesn't absorb the cost of the tariffs. Oh, now the corporate press is finally admitting that these companies will absolutely absorb some of that cost. Oh, they finally admitted that. Oh, it's amazing, isn't it? It's just simply amazing. There's an array of diverse jobs, more traditional manufacturing jobs, but also jobs in advanced technologies. The president is looking at all of those. He wants them to come back home, Levitt said, adding absolutely. Whatever. He believes we have the labor, we have the workforce, we have the resources to do it when asked about the iPhone. Yeah, and as a matter of fact, Donald Trump is also making deals like he was trying to make that deal in Ukraine for minerals. That's part of the plan right there, is to try to get U.S. companies to go and mine these minerals, right? So we can build these phones, do stuff on our own, in other words. We need to be self-sufficient, and Donald Trump knows that. Meanwhile, Trump said there could be a potential trade deal in the works with South Korea, and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has said Vietnam and Japan are coming to the table for talks. Yeah, we already covered all that. But I think this is going pretty good so far. You're getting a whole lot of hype and a whole lot of bluster from the corporate press and Democrats and all these people, and they're drumming all this up like the economy just got destroyed when Trump did this. But hang on, the markets are rebounding, and prices, I haven't seen prices go up yet. I know it's real soon, but still haven't seen prices go up. As a matter of fact, they're ramping up production of oil to combat some of these tariffs, so the price of gas is coming down. This is a good thing. Donald Trump is also working on tax cuts right now, working on not only just regular blanket tax cuts, but no taxes on tips, no taxes on you seniors out there for your Social Security, and no taxes on overtime, which will boost production, as a matter of fact, because people are going to be a lot more willing to work overtime if they don't have to pay any taxes on that. That is a good thing. Once again, boosting production. That's a good way. That was a great idea for Donald Trump to come in and try to boost production in this country. If he can get that across the line, I think that'll be a good thing. I think everybody's going to win in the end. I'm being very optimistic here. Right now, I understand, a lot of people lost a whole lot of money. Kind of, right? It's liquid. It's not hard assets. It's liquid assets. You can get that all back in the next 2 weeks, right? Because the stock market could rebound and be higher than it ever was before, right? So, don't just take the stock market as, oh, well, that's the entire economy and blah, blah, blah. When they say the stock market is down, sure, that's an indicator of where the economy is going, but it's not the entire thing, right? The stock market isn't everything in the entire world, and that's all you're hearing from these people in the corporate press and the mainstream news. Is, oh my goodness, the stock market, right? Like me personally, I don't have any stake in any stocks whatsoever, so none of this affects me, right? Like I remember back in 2008. They kept talking about this great recession, and I was hanging around like, what recession? What the F are you talking about over here? But, at the time, the area that I live in was the fastest growing area in the state, and I believe top 10 in the United States. So we didn't see any effects really from the Great Recession, if you will. So, I didn't feel any effects from it whatsoever. So if you don't have any stake in the stock market, you're not really going to be affected. But a lot of people, they have 401ks. But, that's another thing, people yelling and screaming, gnashing their teeth about those 401ks. Well, you know what? Unless you're about to just cash that out right now, hang on. stop with all the fear mongering around here, because a 401k is an investment. It's a long-term investment, right? So unless you're about to cash that out, like, I wouldn't worry about your 401k, because once again, the stock market will rebound. Everybody knows this. So I don't know why they're fear mongering about your 401k. What they're trying to do, it's narrative building, of course. They're trying to turn you against Donald Trump. They're trying to take down his popularity numbers, if you will, his approval ratings. That's what they're trying to do. Of course, we saw that video clip from Chuck Schumer a while back, knowing that that's what all these protests and all this nonsense, these people going to town halls and all that, that's targeted. That's on purpose. This is being funded by NGOs that were being funded by USAID, for crying out loud. We know this, right? We saw the data. We saw the information, right? So Chuck Schumer gave the game away when he gave that away. That, yeah, they are absolutely going to these town halls to raise their voices in opposition. But, you know, that's just Trump deranged liberals that are doing this. That is not your average everyday American, right? Most Americans, They understand the fact that, yeah, the stock market ebbs and flows. It goes up and it goes down, blah, blah, blah. But it has a trend. And that trend is a general upwards direction, because the economy continues to grow, right? If these companies grow, the economy grows, the stock market will grow. Sure, it would go up and down. So, if you're worried about the stock market right now, I wouldn't be that worried about it. In my earnest opinion, right? It kind of is a bad thing, right? Like, we don't want to see ourselves lose all this money, of course. But, I would tell everybody to just hang in there. That's what I would say. Just hang in there. Wait this thing out, because once again, we're seeing the signs already. These people are coming to the table. They're willing to negotiate. Those tariffs are going to go away. So nothing to worry about on that front. We're going to get a much better deal in the end. United States exports are going to boom because of this. So, I would tell China, yeah, you might want to get on the phone with old Trump and, make some sort of a deal, because you guys are going to get hurt a lot more than us. And, I don't think y'all want to get to continue this game. You don't want to go to the bloody end, if you will, not with Donald Trump, because I don't think Trump is going to back down, because, we can get our stuff through other countries, right? We don't have to go through China for all this, right? Like, we do get a lot of stuff from China, but it's because it's cheap. But you know what? If we can get it from somewhere else, I would suggest do that. I don't like buying Chinese crap anyway. But not to say that China doesn't make good stuff, because I've said it before. They absolutely do, but it is what it is. And I think I believe it there, y'all. Y'all let me know what y'all think about all this down in the comments section. That's all I got on this one. I want to thank everybody for watching. And y'all don't forget to smash that like button and all that good goobly gobbly stuff. And y'all let me know what y'all think. That's all I got. I want to thank everybody for watching. And I already said that, but it doesn't really matter, because I say it every day, so whatever. Y'all have a good one. Stay legitical. Peace.